ministry leaders and talk about their response actually to the same incident, the Hurricane Ian. And it's really interesting that the government were responding with, it's climate change, this is a race issue, only certain people and certain classes are actually going to receive the support, everything, like everyone like making it their own agenda, everyone blaming other excuses. Or alternatively, and I really, really, really want to like praise the local church and praise ministry leaders, because not always do we have a positive story for the ministry leaders, but it's always great when we can celebrate what the ministry leaders are doing. And in researching Hurricane Ian, I found all these random articles about the government not responding right, everything like that. But an overwhelming number of articles that I actually found was about churches opening up their buildings for people to be able to, as rescue centers for people to be able to sleep, and doing food packages and getting volunteer teams together to go out and help people that were stuck, or go and help people clean up their homes, or it was over my heart, just the joy in my heart just was overwhelming to see all this negative stuff from the government, and yet the church rose. This is how we respond to a disaster. This is how we respond to a crisis, by support. That's all people are looking at as leaders in a crisis. People just want to know that they're supported, and I credit the local church for all of their incredible work. And look, I don't know whether you have churches in that area or whether you know of churches in that area, but please see how you can support them, because they're in the local community doing, but you got to understand their volunteers have lost also. Their volunteers have had their houses flooded or roofs knocked off, and their churches have lost power, and their churches so maybe if you know anyone, or maybe if your heart's moved to maybe support, because that's our response in crisis. We as a church, yes, we're called to our local community, but we're called to the world as well. And so I just felt that it was really beautiful to be able to see all these articles of churches, of the church. Let's forget churches as in the building, but the church, the people, the ecclesia, all banding together, not worrying about race differences, not worrying about political differences, not worrying about class differences. They were just out helping people and showing their support. Dr. Rod, as a pastor, how would you suggest ministry leaders showing support when I'm well aware that most pastors are struggling to support their own communities? They're struggling to keep their lights on and keep their rent paid and everything. Like I know that. How do we as ministry leaders and Christian leaders as a whole, when we've got our own stuff to deal with, how do we keep an eye to support the greater community?
Well, you always ask one or two pretty difficult questions when we get together, Craig. It's pretty hard for small churches, no doubt about it, where you don't have a large staff, and obviously a pastor is going to look to his or her own people initially to make sure they're all okay, and that's the right thing to do, because the pastor is the shepherd of his or her flock, which will differ in size depending on the church. But you see, it's what churches can do together that really matters. And one of the things that I'm aware of here in Australia is that our movement, the movement that we're part of, if you like, the denomination, it actually has an organisational setup that coordinates assistance, both financial and in terms of human power, to respond in exactly the way you've described when there are disasters. I am aware that we're not unique. I know of many other denominational groupings where they've actually developed organizational capacity across their denomination. And there's little doubt that it has made a huge difference here in Australia in recent years. Look, we've experienced in Australia a situation where most of the country has been officially declared to be in disaster, part of it because of fire, part of it because of flood. So we've had too little and too much water at the same time in Australia. And the churches have been magnificent in terms of their response. And one of the things which greatly encourages me is they haven't gone looking for accolades.
Yes.
You know, they haven't issued media releases saying, hey, look at us. Look at what we're doing. We're doing this wonderful thing for our community. They've actually just rolled up their sleeves and got involved.
That's good.
And, we are a very small church and we're a very small family. But look, we ourselves have done things like donating a toy collection. That this is a long story, but our older daughter was desiring to have family and she wasn't able to fall pregnant. In faith, we built up a toy collection. She now has 2 children, of course, as some of you will know. But we built up a toy collection. And after the floods a dozen years or so ago in Australia that took lives and just devastated large parts of southeast Queensland, one of the things we could do, a tiny thing, was donate our toy collection, which we did. We were able to start all over again, which we did. Tiny little things like that. People were doing that all through Christendom in Australia. Good. And then in other churches where they had lots of big beefy guys, they got in and did a whole lot of the physical work. They joined what we called in Queensland the mud army after flooding.
Yes.
And they just went in and volunteered to clean out people's houses, and it's just magnificent. And look, it wasn't only the churches, and this is another thing, it was community. It was community. And in fact, I think community outdid governments, as you would expect and as ought to be the case. Because this one of the good things that comes out of these disasters is that we realise we are a community, and that we cannot thrive unless we're part of a community, which is great. And I think also we're coming to the realisation that the governments can't fix it all. And we've really got to take up the challenge ourselves in a lot of these cases. And the churches can mobilise within hours. It takes longer than that for governments because they're just so big. And I just feel so encouraged. And look, I wouldn't say this has necessarily led to a big pickup in church growth or anything like that, but certainly seeds have been sown. And in any case, getting back to something I said earlier, it's the right thing for a church to do, and you just do it because it's the right thing to do. But the churches have done so much, and to their credit, they haven't sought any kind of recognition. They haven't used it as an opportunity for PR. They've just rolled their sleeves up and gone in and helped. And they've done that through financial means. They've also done that by literally rolling up their sleeves and getting involved. And even things like the toy drive, which was coordinated through a whole lot of op shops. I think they're called thrift shops in North America, just to give kids a little bit of joy who'd lost everything in one or other natural disaster. It's such a small thing for us to do, but yet when we do it as the whole body of Christ, it makes a big difference.
That's really good. Actually, one thing that I really take from what you said is it can be very easy for us to criticize the organization that we're a part of. It can be very easy, especially within the church, to want to defect, so to speak, and go off and do our own thing and maybe go and start our own thing. And while, yes, we may be able to run completely how we feel that God has called us to, that does pull us away from the power in size. Like there is a lot of influence and power in a larger organization. There's benefit to that. There's shared resources. There's like you said, you're part of a larger organization or a denomination that in a space of a crisis, if you're just a church on your own, you wouldn't be able to be a part of it. But there is a crisis, and you're part of something that is already doing something, so you can go and be a part of that rather than trying to start something else yourself. I think it can be very tempting as leaders to go, well, I'm just going to do it my own way and do it by myself. Just remember, there is power in being part of something bigger. Now, that doesn't mean that everything they do is right or anything like that, but there are some advantages at times. So with the church getting so much negative criticism, especially lately with a whole bunch of other things that have been in the news, I just think it's really beautiful to celebrate that this is what the church is for. This is what we're being called to, is to support. And the right way to respond in crisis is support. Support those people. That's all they're looking for. They're looking for support. And sometimes that support just comes in an ear. Sometimes that support comes in a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes that support just is them knowing that you care. People just want to know that they're supported. So let me encourage you as leaders that when you're facing a crisis, let's make sure that we show support to those that are in crisis. You've just been watching an excerpt from our leadership podcast. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And hey, put a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this video. And if you'd like to watch the full episode, please check out our channel. And while you're there, we'd be honored if you subscribed.